together, creating a culture of accountability while working remotely. And I put in this little subquote at the bottom there because trust plus responsibility is what guarantees remote success. So a little about me, we'll not go into much of this. Next. So we just have basic rules. Of course, your microphone should be turned off. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I'll check in the chat box frequently, although I can't see it in real time. All right, so just to proceed, then I will take questions at the end of the session as well. All right, so what would we be looking at this evening? Why accountability matters in remote work, the remote accountability challenge, pillars of remote accountability, tips, of course, for HR professionals, and then we'll just summarize everything, and then we can take our Q&A. So let's look at accountability and why it matters. Of course, we can go around what is accountability, taking responsibility, taking ownership. And being able to take ownership in a workplace is one of the key things that distinguishes superstars from people that are just a part of the team. So accountability is one of the most important things that actually distinguishes people at the workplace. So it revolves around honoring agreed upon commitments, and then it breeds trust between people and emphasizes one's responsibility. For remote employees, this is very important because, working remotely, there's really no one supervising you physically. So it is a cornerstone for productivity and harmony. You have to be accountable. That's how we get to know what you're actually doing. You can say, I'm actually working, but if you're not accountable, if you're not taking ownership of your tasks, if employees are not taking ownership of their tasks, we can't really measure their productivity or their performance. So when team members are accountable, trust and employee engagement increases, and ultimately this contributes to the team's success. So what is an underlying factor for successful team dynamics is accountability. And of course, this is very necessary in remote teams. If I were to ask, I just put down something here in my notes and I said, if I were to ask, out of all of this, I'm just going to mention 4 options, and we can just do the votes in the comment section, in the chat box section. Which of these 4 things, I'm going to mention 4 things, which of these 4 things do you think is one of the things that is the biggest challenge with accountability in remote spaces? Firstly, lack of visibility. Secondly, communication gaps. Thirdly, maintaining trust. And then finally, measuring performance. So which of these 4 things are the most or the biggest challenges to remote work accountability? So I'd like for us to just do that really quickly, just to set the tone for our discussion as we proceed. So we can just put our comments into the chat section, and I'll just go over. So which of these? I mentioned lack of visibility, I mentioned communication gaps, I mentioned maintaining trust, and the last thing I mentioned was measuring performance. So us here, what do you think is, okay, I have Victor Onyeka says maintaining trust. Another person says lack of visibility. Let's have more comments. Let's have more people. Measuring performance and communication. Thank you, MA. Thank you, Loretta. All right, let's have more people putting theirs. Maintaining trust. Okay, I've gotten responses from 4 people. We're 16 in the meeting. Let's have more engagement, please. Great. Thank you, Kenneth. Lack of visibility. Thank you, Favor. So Favor says maintaining trust. Kenneth says lack of visibility and measuring performance. So all of these, right, you can see how each one of us tilts to something. And all 4 options mentioned are actually challenges that we face when there's no accountability. So this goes to show why accountability is very important. Allow me to go back. Okay, so why do we now have to ensure that we have accountable teams, so accountable members of different teams, especially for remote teams? Firstly, boosted productivity. When everyone knows their role, things would just have that rocket-like movement. Things would fly. Now, in a workspace, if I know this is what I'm meant to be doing at this time, once I know this is my responsibility, it makes it easy for me to stick to what I'm supposed to be doing. And this applies to every other person who is also a member of my team. And this is why accountability is important, because accountability is not just from the employees to the HR managers, but it's also downwards. Once you are able to streamline and specify what an employee is meant to be doing, it's easy for them to work in that role and perform efficiently and effectively there. So they are not just covering more ground and not being specific. They are rather going to know, this is my task. Any other thing I'm doing is just around or supportive, but I have my main goal, which I'm meant to work on. If I'm not producing results on this particular thing, it means I'm not being productive. Next is enhanced trust. Why do we need to be accountable? Because it builds trust in the organization, and trust is that virtual glue that holds teams together. I can know that I have Mr. Lagbaja working on a task, and I myself am working on another part of that task. And once we come together, there's that cohesion, and I'm able to trust that Mr. Lagbaja would complete his own side of the task, and I wouldn't have to come back to have to work on Mr. Lagbaja's side. So that's why we have to be accountable in remote teams. Next is clearer communication. Of course, once you are clear, there's no guessing again. You know, there's clarity with communicating. One of the things I learned while working is that it's very important for communication to be clear. I believe that's one of the C's of communication: clarity. That communication is concise and it is also very clear. So once there's that clarity with communication, it builds the reason for accountability. It builds why we should have account. It's one of the things that shows why we must be accountable in the workplace. Finally, I put here stronger team cohesion. You see how all of these are somewhat synonymous to each other. They're working hand in hand. So even apart, we can still feel connected. So one person might be working in a different state or location. However, we still feel very connected. There's no over independence felt by one person. Everyone participates, and we know that we're much needed in our team. Right, so moving on. So what are the challenges I put in here? We see how statistics shows us that 85% of remote workers say they are productive, but managers worry still about accountability. We also see that 40% of companies who have remote workers struggle with tracking performance, and we're going to look at some of them. So what are these challenges in depthly? Let's look at it. Out of sight is out of mind. Working remotely, because I'm not working from the office, all of a sudden, I'm not really seen and I'm not heard from. The not being seen can come from up down. So managers are not seeing the employees. Out of sight, out of mind. Because of the absence of physical interactions, it seems to be like there are no, there's no engagement going on. This is a major challenge. Next is communication breakdowns. We're not working in the same space. We've not set our communication lines properly. There's going to be a breakdown in communication for teams working remotely. Next is the blurred work-life balances. So people feel like, oh, my time is being eaten into. Once I'm working remotely, I'm always at work. There's really no time to have a break or to catch a break. I'm just always at work. So these are challenges that we see affecting why people are accountable, especially for remote teams. So I've broken it down and I made pillars of accountability. What are the pillars of accountability? And we're going to be looking at them step by step. And after that, we're also going to have a short session where we will just give feedback, just like we had the icebreaker at the beginning where everyone said what they thought out of the 4 options, something similar. So the pillars I put in here, firstly, expectations. Now, as a manager, and as someone working remotely, of course, one of the things we see is that not being able to set clear expectations for your team can cause a lot of confusion in the team. Now, setting clear expectations is different from setting unrealistic expectations. So one of the characteristics of clear expectation, first off, would be that it is realistic. I have an employee who works remotely, and I expect them to turn in a task. And I know that if I estimate the efforts to have that task accomplished, it's going to take nothing less than 10 to 12 or 15 hours. And then I come in by 10 a.m. in the morning, and I have my employees come together and I give that same task, and I'm expecting that that task is completed by COB that day. That basically is putting them under pressure. And not only are they going to, because of course, many times you have zealous employees, not only are they going to want to put in the extra hours, they would also want to put in extra efforts. So you would have multiple people working beyond the estimated time they're meant to work. And then we now have the challenge, which we mentioned before, blurred work-life balance, because you've eaten into their time by giving unrealistic timelines for tasks. So what's the way we can tackle this? First off is to know what does success look like for your team. Every team is dynamic. Every team has different metrics they measure their productivity with. So what does success look like for your team? How do we do this? Firstly, define roles, define responsibilities, and then define deadlines. What are the roles for the different members of your team? What are their responsibilities with regards to their role? And then the deadlines. How realistic are these deadlines? And how do you intend to keep them to the deadlines? So this is the first step that must be looked at. Not setting unrealistic timelines is very, very key. Next, how do we set and define roles and responsibilities? We have to set goals, right? So we use SMART goals. SMART goals, they are specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, they are time bound, and the last is that they are relevant. So they are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and then they're time bound. So specific goals. I want this particular thing. This is what I want. Not I want this and it is dependent on this other one, it's dependent on that other one, it's dependent on that other one, it's dependent. At the end of the day, you have 10 different things all summed up into one. No, let it be specific. This is what I want. This is what's meant to be seen at the end of this task. They are measurable. How many? Measurable. They are quantifiable. I want 5 bags of this at this time. Measurable. So the person is not just working without any direction. They're achievable. What you're asking for, especially in the timeline you've set, is it possible? How achievable is it? You ask me to find a needle in a haystack. How possible can I, like how fast can I do that? Or is it even possible that I can find a needle in a haystack? Relevant. The task you are assigning an employee to work on, is it actually needed? Or you're just asking them to spend time on irrelevant tasks that are not going to add to their productivity or add to the success of the team. Next, time bound. How long would it take to work on that particular thing? And how long would it take for that goal to be achieved? Any goal that you can't really measure that, okay, it's going to take this time, that's the beginning of failure for that, because it's just, it's going to take, I think this should take about a year plus. That's not time bound. A year plus is very vague. I think this is going to take 2 weeks. I think this is going to take 24 hours. I think this is going to take 3 hours. Time bound, and they are very specific. Next, document everything. Once you've defined your roles, you've defined your responsibilities, you've set up your deadlines, you've set up your goals, Next is to document. Have a document that can be shared across the entire team, and everyone on the team can have access to that document, which will serve as a guide for everyone's work. It's a working document that will guide everyone. You know, for software engineering teams, for the more technical teams, we use live Excel sheets and we put in all of these tasks there. Sometimes you can use other tools that work for you. And then on these tools, you can document every single thing. I'm going to be using very like software engineering tools examples because that's where I am in. So for instance, we want to build a feature. First step is to define the different roles and responsibility in building that feature. So let's say for HC Matrix now, we want to add a feature that allows employees to take loans. So we want to build a salary advance feature, for instance. First thing we would do is to define the roles, responsibilities, and deadlines. What would that mean? That would mean I would say the designer is responsible for, or I will start with the product manager is responsible for building the FRD that would define what are the requirements for that feature. The designer is responsible for taking the FRD and fleshing it out, building a flow, and then building a user journey as well as to how that feature would look like once it has been built out. And then the designer is also responsible for building that. Next, I will say the software engineer is responsible for implementing what the designer has designed. So they will take the prototypes from the designer and then build that. Next, I would say after the software engineer has implemented, the tester is now to test to see that everything has been built to specification, especially based off of the FRD that has been provided by the product manager. So it means that in all of this, the FRD, which is a functional requirement document, has to be accessible by every single person. Every single role that has been defined now has to have access to that working document to be able to see what was meant to be built in the first place. Next, I would now have to ensure I have a breakdown of the tasks. This is what is meant to be done at this particular time. And this is how long it is estimated for us to finish building this feature. We give ourselves a time. Anything outside this time, anything outside the scope of work as well, captured in the FRD, my engineers will come back to say this was not captured in the scope of work. So this is out of scope. Therefore, this would affect our timelines. So implementing a process like that and documenting things really helps to even allow for people to stick to the process that has been implemented, because there's always that working document to go back to. All right, so I hope this is clear so far. Can I just get like thumbs up so that I know that everyone is following and that we're getting the gist and the hang of this? Hi, everyone. I'm waiting for feedback. Is this coming on well? Are we getting this? Okay, Shola has responded that she's following. Let's have more people speak, respond. It's been insightful so far. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Amos. All right. Okay, so we can proceed. Victor is speaking French. Oui, okay. Bien. All right, so let's proceed. So next is to communicate like you pro. Oops, I've gone too far ahead. Okay, so next, communicate like a pro. I use the word over communicate, right? Over communicating is different from being burdensome, being overbearing. Over communicating basically here would mean being concise, clear, and then allowing people to get the point. How so? Like I used my first example when I said when we want to build a future. Now imagine that I just do an FRD and after that, I hand it over to the designers. I don't tell them anything else. My FRD in the first place is not even clear. I don't set up any meetings for us to discuss the FRD at all. the engineers want to start work, I don't communicate with them to say, okay, this is actually what we're building. They don't have an idea of what we're even building. I just send in the FRD to them and sit back. That's poor communication. What's going to happen is we're going to hit a blocker, because at some point, even if they want to go ahead and build, they're just going to build what I didn't ask them to build, or they're going to build what is not required. So over communicating is breaking things down to the point where the least person understands it. That is, even if we have a graduate trainee on the team, they're able to say, this is the vision of what is meant to be built, and this is how it's meant to be built. There's something I learned, how that your strength is, the strength of your team is actually the strength of the weakest person on your team. Weak might be, some people might have a negative connotation to weak, but in this case, allow me to use more like the newest or the most novice person, the most amateur person on the team. How great you communicate as a manager is really based on how well the newest person on your team is able to interpret what you have said. So if you see that they cannot get it, it means you're not communicating right. So communication is key to practice accountability. And now communication is not just from up down, it's not just vertical, whether it's up down or down up, it's also horizontal. You need to be able to communicate with your peers, your teammates, once you're working remotely, because you're not seeing them physically. So in this case, assumption is very dangerous. It will be very dangerous to just assume that one person knows what they are meant to be doing. Let's say for a team that has 4 to 5 people working on the same task. Now imagine not communicating with them. You're working on a document or a sheet, and everyone has what they are meant to populate on that same sheet. And you just go ahead and do yours, and you're moving to the next part because you see, oh, this person has not done theirs, and you're trying to, and you don't communicate. There's going to be an issue, because what if the person actually has a reason why they haven't done it? So over communication in this case, positively, right? It's not overbearing and all of that. Next, use the right tools. If you're working in a technical space and you have engineers, of course, there are different tools that you must be able to use. Yes, Stephen, that is exactly it. Thank you very much. So he says how over communicating refers to providing detailed information without being overwhelming or confusing to the listener, so that the person is able to just explain what you're saying, and your teammates are also able to get it, right? Thank you very much, Stephen. I really like that. Then, like I said, using the right tools. There are project management tools that help to manage remote teams. So if you have a tool and you're not using it, that's really not okay. So you have tools, make use of them. Their project Asana for more technical teams, Jira, you have Trello, you have ClickUp, Monday. Those are tools to keep you in check, you know, and they're able to monitor tasks. So some of these tools are built in a way that you are able to have section them into different buckets. So I have my to-dos, and then I can move my to-dos once I've started on them to the next stage. So if someone is meant to start from that next stage, the person just has to go there and pick it up. You know, that feels accountability. Oops, my power source is out. That feels accountability. Why? Because everyone knows where they are meant to pick up the next task and move on from there. Regular check-ins and updates is the next part. This, I'm speaking to transparent communication, right? So as a team, you must meet, especially if you're working remotely. Regular stand-ups, regular weekly meetings, maybe every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, as applies to your team. Set up those meetings, check in on everyone. Oh, we see that there's a blocker here. What's going on? Why haven't you moved your task? This particular task has been lying in this particular bucket for a week now. What's going on? You know, you won't be able to have that information if there's no communication at all. So transparent communication allows you to build accountability in the team. Next, I said trust and empowerment. That's my third pillar. Trust and empowerment. Trust is the glue. Focus on outcomes, not micromanagement. You know, so what are you doing now? Share your screen. I want to see what you're working on. Send me that document. I want to see how far you've gone with it. What's the update on this? I called you an hour ago and I want to see your progress now an hour after. That would not work. You're just going to build a team that is going to be exhausted, tired, and burdened. Micromanagement does not build accountability. In fact, it's one of the things that hampers accountability. Being trustworthy and building trust in the team would be that you are focusing on outcomes. This was meant to have been completed at this time. Why is it not completed? What's the blocker? I'm supposed to have received a 5-pager from Tunde. From Tunde at 4 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock. Tunde has not sent in his 5-pager, and I've not gotten any feedback as to what is going on with Tunde. He hasn't communicated, right? But Tunde knows his role, he knows his responsibility. Everything has been clearly spelled out. That now is a failure. So that's where I now pick up, oh, that's an issue, right? But not, it's 3 or it's 2:30. Hello, Tunde, where's the 4-pager? It's 3:15. Hello, Tunde, it's 4 o'clock. Hello, Tunde, it's 4:30. Hello, Tunde. That's micromanaging. Nobody works well with a micromanager as the boss. Next, encourage autonomy and decision-making. We can't be the boss of it all. Break your teams into smaller units and let people take on responsibility. Give them that privilege to make decisions, right? Let them feel like, oh, I'm calling the shots. Oh, my boss, let me take this decision. Many times you have to oversee, you have to supervise, you have to see the feasibility of the decisions they are taking. How practicable is it? However, don't just want to be the boss of it all and you're the one taking all of the decisions for the team. No. Sometimes let them be the ones to take decisions for the team. There are things that they are meant to build. I work with designers, and many times after building an FRD, we notice that, okay, there's something out of scope that was not captured in that FRD. I allow them to think on it. Okay, you do the research. What is prevalent right now in the market? What is trending, this particular thing? You come up, tell us what you think, and we're going to build in that direction. Of course, you bring in the business sense and say, okay, it might not work this way and all of that, but still, you allow them to take decisions. Okay, I said FRD means a functional requirement document. I said I'll be using very technical because of my own field. So many times, some people call it a requirements document. I was giving this with respect to my own work when we're building things. Oluyemi, is this clear? Great, thank you. Next is to build psychological safety. You know, this is very important in the workplace, and this would build accountability. If I know that I can come and talk to my boss and they're not going to put me down. If I know that I can come and tell my boss, look, I'm struggling with this particular task and this is why I'm struggling, and I'm not going to hear after how much we are paying you as salary. You are supposed to know these things. Am I supposed to be training you on this? You are a manager, you are an executive. Come on. Or you keep reminding them of their roles. But you are a designer. No. You have to allow people be safe psychologically around you, that they are able to communicate when they are having blockers. That would build trust. And then that particular person would be able to be, in fact, it will make the person accountable. I'm struggling with this. This is why I'm struggling with it. Oh, I've not finished this task. This is why I've not finished. Next, measurable outcomes. Remember I said for trust, we must be able to have outcomes. You should focus on outcomes much more than micromanagement. Now, for that, you have to have measurable outcomes. Track progress with key performance indicators and objective key results as well. So OKRs and KPIs. Celebrate wins. When they do something, when employees do something, yay, yippee, well done. Provide constructive feedback. This builds accountability. It's not every time, look at the work you have given. What does this mean? What does this even mean? What does this even mean? And you're hampering and hampering. No, thank you so much for this, or well done on this. However, I see that you missed a few things here and there, and this can be improved upon. That's how to give feedback. There is no negative feedback also on the receiving side. Always see feedback as positive. However, it is the way people communicate feedback that makes it seem hard to take. So if you're able to give constructive feedback, goes a long way in building accountability in a remote team. Okay, so what are tips for us as HR professionals? I put in 3 here. Lead by example. You know, don't be the one who is not accountable. You must embody the values and behaviors you want to see in your team. It starts from you. You must be accountable. If you are not accountable, you can't expect your employees or employees in the organization you lead to be accountable. It's very basic because people follow what they see, much more than what they hear. It's not just, they give this example for children, that children follow based on sight. It's not just children. People follow, I can follow someone's habits, right? We are very impressionable as human beings. And because we are very impressionable, we pick up things that we see people do and we follow through with them. So as a HR professional, it's your own duty now to lead by example. What things are you not doing that you're meant to be doing? So you don't just say do and you're not doing yourself. Next, you now have the responsibility to train managers to foster accountability. So managers play a critical role in shaping team culture. So HR must equip them with the skills and tools to promote accountability in their teams. Finally, I said create accountability-focused policies. Policies and frameworks provide structure, clarity, and they make it easier for employees to understand what's expected from them, and how they will be held accountable. So now to what I said we would do. Which of these strategies do you think would have the biggest impact in your organization? So we'll just put in the chat board our own votes. Is it recognizing and rewarding accountability? Is it leading by example? Is it creating accountability focused policy? And is it training managers to foster accountability? Which of these do you think would have the biggest impact in your own organization? So right now you're answering with your organization in mind or what you think as well. So which of these 4? So let's have, I think we can have 2 people just unmute to speak for a minute or 2, and then we can proceed from there. Okay, so I said FRD means functional requirement document. I'm going to just put that here. All right, please, if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand, and then we would have 1 or 2 people speak as to which of these they think would have the biggest impact in their organizations. Okay, I have 2 hands raised. So Tolani, you can go first, and then after that we'd have Victor.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for... Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Good evening and well done for the time and the lecture so far. Please, before I mentioned this last question, yes, I would like to ask a question. What's the difference between FRD and PRD?
Oh, they are the same thing. A PRD is also an FRD. So it's a functional requirement document, a product requirement document. They're all the same thing. They just capture requirements. It's a document where you put all your requirement gathering for whatever you want to work on.
Okay, because I know PRD. I'm just hearing FRD for the first time. That's why I asked.
Some people say FRD, some people say PRD.
So for my own organization, I believe recognizing and rewarding accountability will work fine for.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much, Tolani. All right, so Victor was the second hand up.
Thank you very much, mademoiselle. I must say your voice and initiation is quite commendable. So for me, recognize and reward accountability. Basically, because if you don't, these days, some people don't even know what accountability is. They think they do, especially leaders. So it's with the person that knows what it is and value and knows the value and impact it makes on the employees at whatever level that will actually recognize and reward it, not seeing it as cost center, waste of time and resources, or not necessary. And it spills into leading by example, creating the accountability focused policies and training managers to foster accountability. So both from our organization and for most organizations, I think recognizing and rewarding accountability would make the most impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. I agree. It's one of the major things, one of the major strategies. All right, Temi Tokwe.
Hello, please confirm you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the session so far. I mean, it's been quite engaging, and thanks for sharing your wealth of experience as well. In answering the question, how would rather go with leading by example, not ruling out the fact that it's important to reward and recognize employees and their contribution to the bottom line. But how rather, where the heart of the leader here, saying that leading by example can have a profoundly positive impact on an organization. And these are the reasons why I'm saying this. In terms of inspiring trust, when leaders demonstrate the behaviors and values they expect from other people, they kind of build trust with their team members. Boosting morale is another way, way I think leaders can also, grant positive impact, in the sense that when you lead by example, you show your team members that you are also committed, to the vision and values and mission of the organization, which eventually will boost the morale and motivation of the team, right? And this will eventually encourage accountability, and this is now pointing it to what the previous contributors mentioned. When leaders take ownership of their actions and decisions, they encourage their team members to do the same thing. Part of leading by example is also developing the future leaders. Leaders who lead by example, they will also demonstrate the skills and behaviors that is required for effective leadership. Looking at this with the eyes of developing future leaders in the organization as well. So by leading by example, I believe strongly that leaders can create a positive, productive, and successful organizational culture that benefits everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is very true. All of our points are very valid. Rewarding accountability, just like Temitope said, leading by example, developing the future leaders. All of these are very important in building accountability. And with every organization, as HR professionals, you would be in the best position to know what works the best for your organization. That dynamic environment of yours, you would be the one to know this is the best strategy that would work well. I will just link this to the question. I saw Emmy had a question that with rewarding accounts, how far should my organization go? Just so that staff don't appear hypocritical. Again, is very dependent on the kind of organization. So you would know your people. That's why I like to call it people operations and all. So you would know your people and you would know what works the best. Rewarding and there has to be a balance at the end of it all. There has to be a balance with everything that you do. So you're not just focused on just rewarding and overlooking other strategy, but you're able to merge everything and see that everything works hand in hand. So you're not building a team of hypocritical people at the end as well. All right. Okay, so I will just proceed to my next slide. I think we're coming to the end of the slides. Okay, so I just put in some of the pitfalls. That's common mistakes when I'm trying to ensure accountability, micromanagement, trust your team and give them space, lack of clear expectations. This breeds confusion because of the ambiguous expectations. Ignoring performance issues, address problems promptly, unequal treatment, ensure fairness and consistency. And I put in a tip at the bottom there saying, remember, accountability is about support, not surveillance. You're not a soldier watching people who are and expecting them to make a mistake or catch them in the act of making a mistake. So I think I've come to the end of my presentation, my brief presentation. So I would like to have questions and answers. I think we can keep it short because we've gone past the 1 hour mark. So if we can have questions, maybe we can pick 2 or 3 questions, and I think we can wrap it up from there. Mr. Oluyemi, is this in line?
Yes, thank you so much, and great presentation. Thank you so much for your perseverance and persistence. Ladies and gentlemen, do you have a question? Do you have a comment? Would you like to contribute, share insights? This is a good opportunity. Please raise your hands and we take everyone in quick succession. I see my sister, Loretta. You have the floor, please.
Okay, hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, facilitator. That was very in-depth. So when we were discussing it, I was just seeing myself in my organization because, of course, we do remote work as well. So my question is, during the course of your discussion, you mentioned that there must be a document guiding the remote work. Now, if all details have been stated, how we're going to work, timelines, the duties and all has been spelled out, what are peradventure the cost of the project? We did not discover that there was something that was omitted, there was something that was supposed to capture. How do we go about it? Do we say, oh, that has to be on hold, or what do we do at that point in time? So that's my question. Thank you.
All right. So in that case, right, one of the things I also mentioned was the consistent meetings, like if you have daily or weekly meetings. So now, if you've identified something that was missing in your first document, you can always go back to your document and iterate. So when I would use our own example, once you build, you iterate. So you can always go back, oh, we missed this, you go back, but not just alone. You go back with your full team and you guys look at it together and then put in what was missing, evaluate, okay, how much more time would adding this now cost us, right? You now extend, if you have to extend, your people are like, okay, this is not going to take a lot of time, so we can just add, you can just go ahead and put that back in and move. But the communication now in such an instance is what must be very clear. Once you communicate that, okay, we missed this as a team, we have to go back to our working document, you put that back into the document, capture it, can be an additional thing, or you can say, okay, noted, this was out of scope, but it's now being brought into the scope of this. It might extend our timelines. The communication now in such a situation is what would be paramount to ensuring that everyone is still held accountable to that. Does that answer your question? Hi, Loretta.
Okay. I think maybe network has taken her out of the equation.
Oh,
Personally, I appreciated your response. I'm checking to see if there are any ads or if there are any additional questions in the chat box. I see a lot of feedback, commending you, appreciating you. So Favor is asking a question here. She's saying, are there any tools that can help to hold employee accountable while they work remotely and can enable employees access policies easily? Even if you have mentioned it before, just recap, maybe for the benefit of people. Thank you.
Yes, so I mentioned how we can have project management tools. And of course, I think this is where I will plug in my organization. So HC Matrix, we have our tools. For instance, we have the time and attendance model, HC Matrix, where we are able to monitor time and attendance management. So we are able to see when employees, that's for the attendance part of it, we're able to see when they clock in and when they clock out. So they can clock in from any location. That location can be locked in on the system, and we call it a geofencing feature. And that can be locked in on the system, and they cannot log in outside that. They can't clock in outside that location or anything. In the coming months, we're working on a screen monitoring feature that would allow for employees to, or employers to monitor the screen activity of staff. So you're able to see what your staff are on during their work hours. So HC Matrix embodies all of this. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, this is our goal. We're looking at how we can automate, and these kind of challenges, like challenges with accountability, we're looking at how we can automate all of this to take that burden off of HR professionals and give them a tool that can help them to handle even things like accountability in the workplace, or for remote teams as well.
Thank you for that feedback, ladies and gentlemen. Inform, please, in the chat box, drop your phone number and your email, so that if people need to reach you for private consultation or further consultations, or for a demonstration to what you can do for them, what your software, your applications can do for them, their organization, they can reach out to you. So anytime from now, ladies and gentlemen, Inform will be dropping in the chat box our phone number and our email. If in the future too, you, for one reason or the other, need our phone number and email, if you chat me up, I'll be glad to connect you with her or any of our colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, what we would like to do right now, please, if you are not too busy, please feel free to unmute and let's voice our appreciation to the former Umana for the excellent presentation and delivery she has done tonight.
Thank you, Ifeoma.
Fantastic, Ifeoma. Fantastically well. We enjoyed it.
Thank
Wonderful.
you
This is
very
Uncle
much,
Casey.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you very much, Ifeoma.
Amazing. So much,
Thank you
Ijoma,
very
thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
This well
you.
educated and informative. Thank you so much.
Well done.
Please,
Well done.
please,
Fantastic
I would like to
presentation.
ask a question. Okay, regarding this orientation, or what is it called, informative and educative that we just listening to now, I would like to ask, is there any time of that we probably maybe you're looking at again to take us on another topic, so that we'll be looking forward to it, and also probably invite some of our friends or our colleagues that also want to be part of it, that want to learn more about HR practice as well too. So I want to know how often this training can be holding. So that is the question.
Thank you for your question. I dropped some messages earlier in the chat box. We meet at least 2 to 3 or 4 times in a week. The most consistent time is Saturdays, 7 p.m., Sundays, 7:30. And we also meet sometimes during the week as long as there's a facility. Meanwhile, we have about 400 recordings of subject matter like tonight. All you need to do is go to the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is Oluyemi Adeosun. My name is Oluyemi Adeosun. The name of the YouTube channel is Oluyemi Adeosun. And you should please be encouraged to subscribe, share, and so on and so forth. If you'd like to join the HR mentorship community, I will share again just right now the link to join, so that you can go through the onboarding process, and then you get notification with respect to all our meetings. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to personally appreciate again Inform Mana, and by extension HC Matrix. Of course, as soon as possible, they will be back to share more insights that can help our employee and organizational productivity. And we will definitely reach out to everyone. Thank you. Good night. God bless you. Inform, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Let's all
Yeah,
visit
good night. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you
easymetrics.com.
so much.
Bye,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night,
Thank you.
Dr. Adeosun.
Good night, everyone.